Hello, and welcome to another episode of Fatman Beyond, or even maybe Black Man Beyond, I guess, whatever we're going to call these things. Um, I am here by myself because if you have been following anything to do with Kevin, then you know he is deep in the heart of New Orleans making Jay and Silent Bob Reboot. And so it's going to be a minute and a half and more than that, I suppose, until he's back in the world and ready to do another Fat Man. So I figured, why the hell not? We wrapped the room early today. So let's talk. Let's ask some questions. Let us get into it. I am in my office on Carnival Row, which I hadn't been able to talk about when we recorded the home show, but I guess now I can mention. It is a big-ass urban fantasy show that will be on Amazon, starring Orlando Bloom and Cara Delevingne. Let's see, I said the Amazon, right? I don't know when it's going to premiere yet, not true. I do know. I don't know when I can tell you it's going to premiere. But the first season is already done and in the can, and I'm working on the second season. So yeah, it's been busy. If you want to see what a fancy TV writer's office looks like, here it is. Windows, nothing on the walls, couch, coat, thermometer, thermostat, another window, lamp, and me again. I haven't brought anything from home. I haven't put anything up on the walls yet. Who the hell knows if ever I will. But yeah, so that is where I am. We wrapped the room early today, so I have a little bit of time to talk to you fine folks. So yeah, man, let's see what kind of questions we have to answer. Let's scroll a little bit. Let's see. Talk about the experience in a new writer's room. We are 3 weeks in, and most of those 3 weeks are usually spent kind of getting to know each other. At least the first week is definitely just who are you people? How will we gel as a unit? How will we get on with each other? Can we be friends or at the very least friendly? Will we be friends forever and ever? I've never been on a show that's gone for more than one season where I was involved in it. So far, it always feels a bit like summer camp. You show up, you work for 20, 25 weeks, and you see these people every day, and then the show wraps, and you never see them again. Unless just in passing, like there's an event or in the world or, mutual friends, and you have a dinner. But so now we're only kind of sniffing each other's butts phase. But we've also pretty much broken a whole season of TV, at least the bigger strokes so far. And now we start diving into the nitty and the gritty, and it's been really, really great on Carnival Row season 2. So yeah, let's see. In the can. Yes, that is gross. Viceroy Craig. Why has toxic fandom become such a thing? Social media has been around over 10 years now. What the fuck happened lately in the past 2 or 3 years? All right, Viceroy Craig, I guess we're going to start with a big question and not just like, how was your day, man? I honestly don't know. I think that maybe it's because even though social media has been around for a very long time, the actual media that people have been seeing has been pretty much what it always has been. The thing that has changed, and if you ask me, I would say it changed for the better, is the kinds of people who get to tell the stories that get the same kind of release that movies had been getting for 100 years previous, or at the very least 40 years previous, until after Jaws, post Star Wars. The kind of movies that everybody got to see were made by the same kind of person. And that person was almost always a guy. He was almost always a little older, probably had a beard and a baseball cap, and he was almost always a white fella. And in the last 5 years or so, by the way, those movies were almost always about people who looked just like that director. And a decent chunk of the audience also looked just like that director. So people were getting stories made for them, made about them, made by them, and they were happy. And, fair. Like, it's the kind of thing that you want, and you're getting soup to nuts. But in the last 5 years or so, people have been giving more people chances to tell stories about them, or at the very least, including people who do not check the white slash dude slash male slash bearded slash baseball cap boxes, and are telling stories about women, or telling stories about people of color, who are telling stories about the LGBTQ community. And those people who had been getting everything that they wanted are suddenly being confronted with looking at faces on screens that don't look exactly like them. And I guess some people are chafing at that, even though they're also still getting those same other kinds of movies that they were getting before. But now there's a person of color in their Star Wars, or there is a woman in their Marvel, or there is a whatever the thing is that they guess they want to be upset about. And so the reaction to that has been toxic, aided by the anonymity of the internet, aided by the illusion that every thought a person has is a thought that's worth sharing. I think all of those ingredients thrown into the big, shiny cauldron of immediate access to people they never really had immediate access to before, and a platform that can broadcast those thoughts immediately, has kind of led us to where we are now. I don't know if there's a way to come back from that. I'd like to hope there is. That's faster than kind of generational drift. Like, yes, those people will eventually die, and hopefully, the next generation always seems to be a little bit more amenable to change than the previous generation. So hopefully it'll move the needle a little bit. But I think that's how we got where we are. My dime store sociology. All right, let's see. Blah, 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 blah. M. Hegarty 610. What do I think of Arrow coming to an end? I think every story needs to come to an end. At least every serialized story. There is no story unless you have an ending. And 10 seasons, I think it's 10 seasons, is as good a run as you get for a character like that. And yeah, I mean, good for them. And find a way to plant that story. Find the blind arrow shot of Robin Hood to designate where he should be buried. Yeah, I mean, I wish them nothing but the best. And yeah, it has been a hell of a run. They should be super proud. Let's see. Steve Nerdy Exploits. Did I enjoy the latest Shazam trailer? He thinks it had some promising, dare I say, iconic moments. Thoughts? I did enjoy it. I mean, it's fun. It's funny. I think there is a world in which you should be able to take a child to a movie about a superhero wearing a cape and have it be a somewhat light, somewhat frothy, somewhat vibrant exploration of what it means to be a hero, without the weight of the world crashing down on it. It looks fun, and I mean, it's a superhero movie. They should be fun. So yeah, man, I'm on board. I'm always cautiously optimistic, but and at the jump when they first told me they were making a Shazam movie with Zach Levi, who I liked quite a bit from Chuck, I just didn't know what to make of it. But once I started to see trailers and saw the tone they were going for, it's like, yeah, no, all right, I'm down for this. Rymenda, what's the best way to crank out a solid script? Any tips? That is too broad of a question. One, you probably have to crank out 5 or 6 not solid scripts to get to the one that's pretty good. It's hard and it's difficult, and the first couple tries are going to be shitty, and everybody's first tries out of the gate are shitty, but you need to power through the shitty to get to the good stuff. So yeah, iteration and practice. It's a craft, and the more you do it, the better you get at it. Let's see. Nerd U Entertainment. Did you guys make any plans for New Orleans yet? And are you guys ever going to come to the New York, New Jersey area anytime soon? It does not look like we're going to do a live show in New Orleans. I think Kevin is a little busy directing and starring in a feature film. I don't think that leaves a lot of bandwidth to actually put together a live show. So sadly, it bums me out a little bit, only because I love New Orleans and love doing the podcast. So to get those two things together at once was like dreamy. And I don't know about New York, New Jersey. We every year we talk about doing it, and every year it doesn't seem to come together. But fingers crossed, we'll get there one of these days. Um, let's see, Rich Channing. What are my thoughts on the upcoming Godzilla movie? Um, I my thoughts of the upcoming Godzilla movie are much like my thoughts. They sound a lot like Pinky in the Brain, which is if you're going to give me another Godzilla movie, I will go see another Godzilla movie. Um, it is a formative part of my youth, so I'm down like a pound to see another one of those bad boys. Um, let's see. Definitely not Dylan. Predictions for Game of Thrones final season. Um, it'll be 6 episodes long, each one 90 minutes. Somebody will sit on the throne and lots of people will die. Beyond that, I don't really have any predictions. I never read the books because I forgot how to read. But also, they made a TV show, so I didn't have to read the books. So I don't have the same detailed level of granular dissection of those stories and what I'm expecting and what I've been wanting for years and years and years. I hope they do not give us what we want. When that show is good, it doesn't give you what you want; it gives you what you need. And I hope that Benioff and Weiss figure out what it is we need for this thing when it comes to its close. I will also say that HBO is leaving money on the table by not putting those in theaters, because I would absolutely spend $15 every week to go see those episodes on the big screen. And I do not think I'm alone in that. And like, hey, I also pay for HBO, and I would be fine to do both. So, well, that's just me. That's just me. Let's see. Jay Hunt, 2013. How would I write out Ben Affleck in the current DC movie universe? I would treat Batman like you treat James Bond and never explain why there's a new James Bond. There just is. Batman is the reason why we're showing up, not whoever's wearing the cape. Let's see. Comic Book Lover 27. Any advice for a comic book geek about to get married in 2 months? Depends on what you want advice on. What to do with your comic books? Can't tell you that. I'm hoping you've had conversations with your fiance about what you're going to do with all of your shit. That's an important conversation to have. But let's see, comic book lover. If you were a gentleman, realize that you were going to lose almost every argument. If you're a lady, realize you're going to win every argument, but be a little magnanimous about it. Compromise is the key to long-term relationship health. You must give and she must give, and through that giving, you will both find a place in each other's hearts. That is about all I got. And don't go to sleep angry. Let's see. PC Principal Ondarks. Forgive me for backing up. I'm getting old and my eyes are not great. How long can the MCU be in the limelight? The MCU, I feel like it will at some point ebb and flow and rise and diminish. What happens post Endgame, I think, will tell that story a little bit, because we will enter a phase not very far from now when you do not have Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man, you do not have Chris Evans as Steve Rogers, you do not have Chris Hemsworth as Thor, and how do they extend that universe? The introduction and inclusion of the X-Men and Fantastic Four are probably a big part of that. But yeah, it's what happens when you put those particular toys to bed. What other toys are we going to get? Let's see. CK Howling, do I like pizza? Duh. BBZ Ducky, thanks for waving at us at the Stan Lee event. You got it. Bear Customs, I need a writing job. Please help me, please. I cannot help you. I do not have jobs to give. Let's see. Katana 1120. Hey, what did I miss? Oh, so much. So much. We went so deep, man. We solved everything. I'm sorry you missed it. You'll just have to wait for later. Let's see. Information silos. Thanks, Kyle. Let's see. Cledev, CLE, Dave 33. Who would I cast as Dream and Death if there were a Sandman series or MOVO? I'm going to say movie. I feel like there, there's a world in which I would like to time travel and go get young Bjork to be Death. Because there's some daffy wonder alienness to her that is kind of irresistible. I saw a video today. It's on the YouTubes somewhere of Bjork explaining how a television works. It feels oldish, maybe a couple of years old, but it is so like elfin magic, daffy wonderful that I kind of wanted to see like Mr. Rogers starring Bjork, where she just explains random technology shit by taking the cover off and explaining to herself what it looks like. This looks like a small city, and look, there's an elevator taking the pictures from the bottom of the city to the screen. But yeah, she would have been great. And there's a part of me that completely sees the Benedict Cumberbatch as Dream. He's got the cheekbones for it. I can also see Cillian Murphy as Dream, as Morpheus. I mean, the super nerd in me would really like to see Lawrence Fishburne as Morpheus squared, but I'm afraid that dream is never going to happen. Let's see. Definitely not Dylan again. Have I seen the trailer for the new James Gunn film, Brightburn? I have seen that new trailer, and it actually looks pretty interesting. It's a little bit Chronicle. It's a little bit Superman. I mean, it's a lot Superman. It's very interesting. I feel a little bit bad that it's being marketed as a James Gunn film because he didn't direct it. But no, I'm curious. I'm always curious about sort of alternate takes on well-established kind of pop mythology. Ooh, the lights went out. What? Because I'm just hanging out in my office. Yes. Vela's Machine. Any plans to revisit the Schmodown? You and Kev can kill in a team match. I quite enjoyed my time at the Schmodown, the couple of matches that I did. Unfortunately, Schmodown does not merge very well with being gainfully employed. It's either during the week when I have a job or it's during the weekend when I'm, wanting to spend time with my family. Excuse me. So I don't think there are any plans to go back in the future. And also, like, there's the point at which that game is fun because it's, hey, let's just talk about kind of like movie and trivia shit. And here's the weird tonnage of stuff that I have in my brain that I can't explain. And then there's I got to study, and I'm not looking to study. So I think my time in the Schmodown is over, but I could also be super, super wrong. Let's see. Advent Crash. What is my favorite spy movie? I am quite fond of Goldfinger. It is the Rocky III James Bond movies, and that is the one where the formula gets kind of imprinted the best. I really like Casino Royale. I think of all the Daniel Craigs, I think that's the strongest one. I'm trying to think if there's any other spy stuff that's kind of like outside of the James Bond. I mean, I'm a fan of Project A, only because I want to see Jackie Chan do awesome Jackie Chan shit. But yeah, there you go. Let's see. Kelvra 2501 wants to know my story for Black Panther 2. My story for Black Panther 2 is ready and waiting for Disney to pay me to give it to them. Beyond that, alas, it is mine. Let's see. Let's see. K Dinero 6. What would have been your dream production to work on, past or present? I would have loved to have been in the Battlestar Galactica writers' room. If you can't tell the depth of my love for Battlestar Galactica, you should just go and listen to my other podcast, the Battlestar Galacticast, that I co-host with Trisha Helfer, in which we talk about nothing but Battlestar Galactica. And yeah, I have such mad respect for that show, for coming out of the gate so strong. Buffy the Vampire Slayer would have been awesome. I feel like The West Wing would have been an interesting place to be, even though I never would have gotten to write a script because Aaron Sorkin wrote everything. I see Buffy. I love Firefly to death. It would have been a great year, although I'm not sure that level of heartbreak would have been easily overcomable to be able to do really good work for 1 year and for the network not to get it and for the public to not love it quite enough until much later. I would have liked to have been on, let's see, one more show. You know what? Parks and Recreation. I feel like, I've heard that sitcom rooms can be merciless and awful and horrible kind of pits of despair and self-loathing, but something tells me that the Parks and Recreation room was a little bit more bright than that, and I love that show to death. So yeah, those would have been my dreamy dreams. Blah 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 blah. Let's see, Kyle Andre, how I pick my writing projects. Obviously, part of it is paying the bill, but what makes you want to take a job? This has been the first year coming off of Castle Rock and coming off of Treadstone that I've actually had a level of choice. Previously, it had been somebody wants to pay me to do this work, I will go do this work. Because I've always wanted to write TV, and to get the chance to write TV is a dream beyond dreams. And so if somebody wants to let me do that, I was always going to jump at it. But after those two shows and started looking around for what the next thing would be, the reps did bring some stuff down the pike that I just didn't like. And for me, if it's not something that I create myself, if it's not something that I believe in that came from my heart, that a story I've been dying to tell, the thing that makes me interested in another show or makes me turn away from taking an opportunity is because there's something about the show that means that is such that I couldn't give my full-throated support to it, that I would be sitting in the room trying to think of ideas for a show that I fundamentally didn't believe in. And the reasons why I don't believe in it are rarely because of story reasons, because a lot of those can be fixed. But they're almost always philosophy reasons. A show that has a weird bent of misogyny or excessive violence or just has its head in the wrong place, that I couldn't give full-throated creativity or support to, sends me away. The things that I respond to in shows are worlds that I think are fun to play in, worlds that offer story opportunities and character opportunities, characters that are rich and layered and complex and conflicted and all of that awesome, and then a storyteller who has a vision for what that show is, knows where he feels or she feels like it should end, knows where she thinks the great joys and the nooks and the crannies, and can communicate that vision effectively. I'm happy to strap in and ride to the end of the road with that person on that show. Let's see. Nyan. How did I feel about Spike Lee winning Best Director? I would have felt much better if he won Best Director. Sadly, he won Best Adapted Screenplay. I think that award was, ironically, some of my problems with Black Panther were on the screenplay, were the liberties they took with the facts in order to create a thriller, because the true story did not involve a bombing at the end. But it felt very much like the Academy, which does this all the time, is here's a person who has an unassailably important career who we had not given a real Oscar to before, and so here's our chance to reward them for a lifetime of cinema. It's the Paul Newman for Color of Money. It's the Al Pacino for Scent of a Woman. It's like both of those guys had done far, far better work far earlier, but the Oscars the Academy didn't recognize them for it. So here's the trophy we should have given you years ago. Here's the trophy Spike should have gotten for Do the Right Thing and didn't get. That said, happy to see that guy win. Because again, like Do the Right Thing, Malcolm X, two of the best movies ever made that clearly should have won some kind of trophies from the Oscars and never did. So I'm glad he won. I wish it was for Best Director, though I can't slight Roma either. Anyway, let's see. If Jordan Peele's new movie, which is called Us, doesn't do well critically or financially, what does that mean for his career, for the future? LeBeau 519. Something tells me that had this been 10 years ago and Jordan got the chance to make a movie at this level, and it failed, it would be irreparably harming to his career, or at the very least, it would take him 10 years to get out of movie jail to make another one. I feel right now he has so much momentum behind him. Us will do well because there's enough of a fan base out there who came from Get Out who will show up. The movie was, if I had to guess, was also done cheap enough that it doesn't have to be a $500 million blockbuster to get into the black. If he spent $40 million on it and it makes 80, everybody wins. I think he keeps on rolling. I think he has enough irons and enough fires and enough goodwill from the community, from the movie-going public behind him that it's, even if it doesn't do well, it's a bump in the road and not a wall. So, yeah, I think he's all good. Let's see. La 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 la. What? Oh, hey, Teflon Sean, I inspired you to read Dune. Excellent. Rich Channing, my thoughts on the Oscars. I already wrote about them for the Hollywood Reporter, so don't know if I need to dig back into that particular well. Mishmash66, what do I think about Idris Elba replacing Will Smith in Suicide Squad 2? I mean, I'm all for Idris Elba in most things. I think it's an easy swap out, and probably better for the movie. Will Smith's magnitude always imbalanced that movie, because Deadshot needed some semblance of a story. He needed some reason to be doing the things he was doing. He needed, a daughter that he was sacrificing for. The movie in some configuration needed to be about him. I think Idris Elba doesn't quite bring that level of weight to it, and not that he's not weight is the wrong word. He doesn't bring that level of gravitational pull to it, and that the movie suddenly has to be about him again. I am still wanting for him to get more of his own spotlight. I feel like he's in the Hobbs and Shaw movie as the bad guy. He was in Pacific Rim as the elder statesman. He's in this as part of an ensemble. Like, I'm still waiting for the big, shiny, honking Idris Elba kicks ass for himself in his own thing. That is not called The Dark Tower. So yes, I feel good. Action Benton, have I gotten to play through Red Dead Redemption 2? I finished it, a month and a half ago or so. And I loved it. It started slower than I would have liked. It's almost as if the game was daring you to engage with it. But once you got out of the snow, and once you start to get into the world, like Arthur Morgan revealed himself to be as great a protagonist as I could imagine, I could hope for. So yeah, no, I loved it, and tragic as fuck at the end, and especially because you know where it's going. It's the best way of doing a prequel, which is sort of filling in some of the blanks and finding new story, but also letting the tragedy of what will later come hang over what that first game is. So yeah, I was awesome. Neon blah 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 blah. Which non-comic book movie was my favorite movie from last year? Fuck, I can try to remember what was on my top 10 list. It escapes me at the moment. But I will say the most surprising movie was The Night Comes for Us, which you can find on Netflix, which is maybe the greatest action movie I've seen in about 5 years. Definitely since John Wick. It is my favorite thing since John Wick. So yes. La 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 la. Advent Crash. Again, I finished the draft of my screenplay. How do I suggest you make changes if you don't have a lot of people to give notes? Well, if you do have any people to give notes, give them a draft and have them read it. I would not advocate. I wouldn't advocate like any of the kind of screenwriting gurus who will charge you money to read and give you feedback and promise to enter you in a competition, and like there is so little benefit from that, because I mean the math of it is that they're trying to make money off of your work, and by telling you that you're not good enough and telling them that they can help make you better is how they're going to do that, and that I don't think will get you where you want to be. Find the people that you love, even if it's a family member, if it's a close friend who doesn't have experience in it. See what they think, and just like take it apart. Read it, reread it, make sure it works, make sure it flows. If there's movies that you like in the same vein, watch those movies and see how those beats play out, and not to copy them at all, but just to see, here's how the emotional math pays out, here's how the plot math pays out. But yeah, and just make sure that your character stuff is strong, because at the end of the day, that's why people show up for the movies. Like, yes, there's a spectacle, yes, there's the explosions and the car chases and the laser beams and the robots, which are all cool, but we go into a dark theater because we want to be entertained, and we want to form some kind of bond with the characters who are entertaining us. So concentrate on that stuff. Shogun Alex, do I think a Harry Potter TV show would work? Abso-fucking-lutely. I don't think you would call it a Harry Potter TV show, but I think, and I don't necessarily want the prequel. I'm not a big fan of the Fantastic Beasts movies, but there's 20 different magical academies around the world. Each one of those schools has somebody in it who is remarkable. So take me to some of those other schools. Tell me what those kids are about. Tell me, play out a different sort of global magical threat of which Hogwarts plays a small part. What happens when the Dementors go to every other school, looking for other kids with power. I think it is a big canvas that you can absolutely play with. Would Red Robin seem more realistic to you than traditional Robin? I mean, I love their cheeseburgers. Let's see, Lord Mooby. Will I be in the Jay and Silent Bob Con scene? I vote for a Silent Bob crossover costume. I don't know. I could not tell you. Let's see. Miles left. What got me into writing? What got me into writing is that I couldn't draw. Like, I love telling stories. I love comic books. I tried to draw and could not do it. And so I started writing. Dungeons and Dragons also played a part in it. Dungeons and Dragons, which I haven't played in like 20 years, but it was my first exposure to collaborative storytelling. Like, you're all telling a story together. And that was a ton of fun. I wanted to be a director when I went to college and made a couple of short films that were goodish. And the good was the fact that nobody cares about your student film as much as you do. And so everybody else who you're relying on to help you make it is going to give you 60% than 100%, because you're not paying them. They're doing it out of the kindness of their hearts, and none of them are trained to do it. And so I realized that those short films were never quite what I had in my head, but the only way to get what I had in my head out was to write it. And on the page, it could be exactly as I want it to be. There was nobody between me and the effectiveness of the story being told. So I started to write, and that's sort of how that's how I began to enter the world, was as a person who works with words. Let's see. Gilbo-licious. Do I have a white whale of a script? One that you've worked on for years but can never quite complete? I sort of feel like if there's a script that you've started and haven't been able to finish, you were never meant to finish it. And there are a couple of things that I have that are collaborations with other people that just petered out at some point. I don't have anything that I started writing myself that I've never finished. Once I got into script, there are ideas that are kind of half-baked that are sitting on a hard drive. There are outlines that have never quite been coalesced into a thing. And I find that if I don't have the passion, usually when I start writing an outline, or I start just writing into a Word document. Like here's kind of the loose ideas that I have, and maybe some characters, and maybe the world a bit, and maybe, the light's back on. Maybe just whatever and kind of wool gathering my brain will do. And then the more I start to work on it, the more it begins to take a shape, and then I start building it into acts, all right? If it's TV, it's 5 acts. If it's movie, it's 3 acts, and start saying, all right, here's the second plot point, here's the big thing here, here's the reversal, here's the hero's lowest point, and just start doing all that work. And then I start refining it, and I find that if I can actually write the entire outline without being so excited to actually start writing it, I'm probably not going to write it. Because the stuff that I've written that I've loved the most, I gave up on the outline halfway through because I stopped. Why dick around with the outline when I can be writing the fucking script? The things that don't get finished, I clearly didn't love enough. And you have to love it to live with it for as long as you have to live with it. So there you go. Merrill Barr. Hey, Merrill. Thoughts on the Netflix Spielberg stuff? I think, Steven Spielberg is hands down top 10 pantheon of film directors ever. He was, I think, Hitchcock maybe referred to him. Was it Orson Welles? Might have been Orson Welles. No, it was maybe Orson Welles talking about Spielberg, that he was the first one of us who didn't see the proscenium, meaning that he was the first director who really didn't come with any attachment to the theater, to the stage, to the classic way of putting drama up on its feet. He's fucking Spielberg. That said, it feels like this is the weirdest fucking hill for him to die on. And because, movies are movies, and we know what movies are, and we know when we encounter movies, and we know when we encounter TV. TV is serialized. There's more than one chapter. And it's not that it's a sequel. It's that we are telling this particular chunk of story in parts, and that's television. There already are rules on the table to say, here's what a movie is, here's what a TV show is, or here's what's not a movie. Here's what's eligible for the Academy Awards, and here's what's not. You have to run in a theater in New York or LA for a week, and you have to have a review in the New York Times or the LA Times. And if you can do either of those things, you can qualify to be a movie. Those are there. If Netflix does those things, then they're movies. It's no different than a regular movie studio making a movie, putting it in theaters, and then putting it on cable afterwards, or going straight to DVD. Like, those are all still movies. And it's also somewhat hypocritical because most of the Academy watches movies on screeners anyway, so you're watching them at home and not in the theater. And the point that Netflix is opening the doors to production for people who ordinarily wouldn't be able to walk through them. People of color, people from disadvantaged backgrounds, people from all over the world who don't get the access to the studio system that Spielberg has had since he was 22 years old. It's just it feels like a weird generational thing for him to be, for the boy genius to suddenly be the old man crusty genius, is not a good look. And I can't quite see I don't see his side of the story. I don't see what makes that version of it better. So yeah, that is just me. I just think he's wrong. Let's see. Tone Targaryen, I'm excited for the James Gunn Suicide Squad. Yeah, like I like that dude's work. I like his sensibility. And it seems as if what that movie needs is fun. It needs to be like whip smart. It needs to be fast. It needs to be lean. It needs to be fun. So yeah, let's see. He wanders and ponders. Any plans to do another show in Canada? I don't know. There's no plans, but I would never turn it down. I will be at the Northern Fan Con in Prince George again in May. Kev is, at least at this point, not slated to join me, but maybe I'll do a solo thing. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But the amount of time Kev spends in Vancouver, it would surprise me if we don't do another one up there. La-di-da-di-dum. The Jacknut. Can a Thundercats movie work? I mean, you could just fucking go into Avatar and color shift everything to orange. I think it could totally work. Yeah, I mean, I'd watch that. You might not be able to call him Lino, though. Yeah, why the fuck not? Yeah, I think you could do that. Let's see. Way too raw. Have I seen Umbrella Academy? I have not yet. I know. I'm an awful nerd. I'm sorry. I want to. I want desperately to. But it's being in the room has swallowed much of my bandwidth. So when I get home, it's like I just want to watch stuff that not to say that I don't have to engage in, but I know that once I start watching Umbrella Academy, it's going to be like 4:00 in the morning of me just still watching Umbrella Academy, and I can't be doing that yet. So yeah, not yet, but I want to. Lil Robio saw an ad for Neil Gaiman's Masterclass. As an entry-level writer, do you think it's worth taking? I cannot speak with any authority as to whether or not the Masterclasses are worth it or not. I've never watched one. I've never listened to one. I've heard people rave about the Aaron Sorkin one. I've heard the Neil Gaiman one is pretty good. I think that, especially when you're beginning, and especially from somebody like Neil, you can totally learn. Learning at the feet of a master is always a good thing if you can. And if this opens those doors for that, I don't know how expensive they are, but give it a go. I mean, it can't hurt. I used to read a bunch of screenwriting books when I was first starting out. I would read like a book a week. And after a while, they all began to kind of tell you the same thing. Because what they can't teach you is how to tell your story. They can teach you how to tell their stories. They can give you some of the tools to tell stories, but they can't tell you how to tell a story. And so after a while, it just used to be, if I can pull one interesting thing out of these 200 pages, it was worth it. And then after a while, I stopped being able to find those interesting things. When you're at the beginning of your road, go for it. See if there's an interesting thing in there, and give it a shot. Okay, let's see. Viceroy Craig, again, how do you write for other genders, races, etc. when you're not part of that group? Is it as simple as just getting input and advice from those groups you're trying to represent in your work? It requires, the knowledge that you don't know. I'm sure that is some, Confucius thing, like the first step in wisdom is knowing that you're not wise. But it's knowing what you don't know, and then B, research. So I, as a Black person, I kind of understand the Black experience in as much as I understand my Black experience, which is not every Black experience. I know a lot of different kind of Black people. I know a lot of different kind of people from different places. While I haven't lived their lives, I lived my life, and I feel like there's a level of authenticity I can bring to it because it's a lived-in experience. I have been for my entire life confronted with media about people who are not me. So almost every TV show I watch, almost every book I read, almost every comic book I read, almost every movie I see, almost everything anywhere is oriented not to me, but to a white audience. So I've had nothing but exposure to those lives, to that mindset. So I do feel with some confidence that I can write those characters as well. Women, I have never been, will never be, do not get to see nearly enough media about, though that's changing. But I have found ways to surround myself with women just because I find women super interesting because they don't think like men, and men don't think that much. So, but it's still it's presuming that I can suddenly write a woman, which is just like writing a man, write a character who wants things. But Not quite. It's realizing that women are going through life like they've got one hand tied behind their backs, as far as pay equity and opportunities, and even without getting into the awfulness of sexual harassment and Me Too and uncomfortable workplace environments and unsafe work environments and all of that shit. It's just the world is not arrayed to benefit them in the way that it's built to benefit men. But it's realizing that I don't know that and then doing that research. So pick up books, watch documentaries, go out into the world, talk to people, like realize that yes, every character is a human person, and every human person has wants and needs. And the drama of a story is finding out what a person wants and keeping them from having it until the very last minute. It's the obstacles in the way of getting what you want. And that part of it is true for anybody. But the way in which a person will go about getting what they want and the way in which they will deal with the obstacles you put in front of them differs depending on their life experience. So do the work. Like that's the problem, I think, that comes is when people don't do that work, when writers don't realize that they have to try and find a way to put themselves in somebody else's shoes. And that only comes through research. So yeah, do the work. Let's see, blah, 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 blah. Who would you show up to a modern day Keaton Batman movie? Because if it's Batman Beyond and he's super old Bruce Wayne, hell yeah. Let's see. Just Reggie Official. Will I sign autographs at WonderCon? I am not currently slated to sign autographs anywhere. I don't have a booth. I don't have I don't have any time set up at other publishers to do it. I might look into it, maybe at Top Cow. But if you spot me walking around on Saturday and there's anything I can do, by all means, flag me and I will sign whatever you got, Reggie. Let's see. Shuri C.K. Howling, Shuri's Ironheart, hell yeah. Why the hell wouldn't? That would be awesome. Let's see. He wonders and ponders again. Are you optimistic about the next Ghostbusters movie? I think I talked about this on the last home show, where Kev said that he had sat down with Jason Reitman and got the inside scoop. I mean, I try to be cautiously optimistic about most things, but I also, like I said, we have one amazing Ghostbusters movie. Sometimes you just catch lightning in a bottle, and sometimes you just need to reckon with the fact that you're not going to catch it again. And I don't think whatever Ghostbusters movie we get now will live up to what we expect it to be. I feel like we're, to a certain degree, asking ourselves to be disappointed. So I guess maybe that's not looking forward to it. Anyway, let's see. Young Bjork is harassment. Lord Mooby, hey, thank you for congratulating me. It was super fun. Let's see. Rymanda, any hope for John Kasdan's version of Indiana Jones 5? I think a requel would be cool. I am kind of in my heart of hearts praying that we don't get an Indiana Jones 5. Again, like, I just feel like I love Harrison Ford. I do. But he's pushing 80 years old, and that's not Indiana Jones to me. And I don't know what version of that is him passing the torch, because that was supposed to be Indiana Jones 4. I think it's probably about time to recast. Let's see. I have never been to Australia. I would like to go. Retro Geek. If you guys invite us to come to Australia to do a show, we will totally come to do a show. Let's see. Talked about Deadpool. Jack Nut, what happened with the Wachowskis? I honestly don't know. I think that I remember when John Singleton was doing press for Boys in the Hood, he said that was the movie he went to film school to make. And he did, and he made it, and it's great. But I think that for some storytellers, they have a limited number of stories they want to tell. Some can go on for years and years and years. Some have endless supplies of stories. Others, hey man, sometimes there's just the one. And if that one is great, then fantastic. So I don't know if the Wachowskis' great story they needed to tell was The Matrix, and they told it. And they've been, taking big swings at stuff, for a while. And the studios, to a certain degree, will indulge that because they want another Matrix. They will always want another Matrix. So Cloud Atlas wasn't that. Speed Racer wasn't that. Jupiter Ascending wasn't that. Will they get more shots? I don't know. Maybe. But maybe The Matrix was the story they were put on this earth to tell, and they told it. So yeah, I don't know. Let's see. Okay, Spiders. Hey, Mark, huge fan. I recently binged my rewatch of Castle Rock. I was wondering if I have any idea about when the second season will be coming out in production. Any favorite horror movies? I do not know much about the second season of Castle Rock. Ooh, lights off again. I still have friends in that room. I don't know when production is supposed to start, but if I had to guess, it will be out sometime this year because I think Hulu is invested in having more Castle Rock and more Stephen King on your tubes before the year's out. My favorite horror movies, Evil Dead 2, The Exorcist, the first movie scared the shit out of me, The Ring, the remake, The Thing, Carpenter's The Thing, Nightmare on Elm Street, Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead, Cabin in the Woods. Yeah, I love those. Okay. Let's see, I'm probably about 3 minutes from having to shut down, so let's see what else we got. Ultimate Spy by Richard Grieco. Oh, Ormovs. Do you play video games? Yeah, I think we hit that. Yes, Jacknut, I'm going to make you watch Battlestar Galactica. Protagonist Radio, hey man, is Dune a drag to read? I picked it up to prepare for the movie, but I always heard it was pretty dry read. I'm trying to remember. I was so obsessed with David Lynch's Dune that I bought the novel and I held it because I couldn't understand David Lynch's Dune and I wanted to know what the fuck was going on. And I found it fascinating. It is definitely, it is dense. It is dense as hell. He goes super deep into like the ecology of Arrakis and the political workings and how Emperor Shaddam IV ruled over Shaddam III, like all of that stuff. It's the George R. R. Martin of science fiction shit. Or George R. R. Martin is the Frank Herbert of fantasy shit. But I found it captivating. I really did. It's a book about a superhero. I mean, especially the first three novels, the books that follow Paul. It's what happens when a superhero, when a superhuman enters a world that's not prepared for it. How does he throw off everything? How does he throw off the social structure? How does he throw off the political structure? What happens when a person becomes a god? What happens to the world around him, and then what happens to him himself? And I think that question is super fascinating. And Dune, for all of its kind of deep thoughts about deep things, is a really interesting read in that way. All right. Bloop, 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 bloop. Hey. Joe Koch. All right, this will be the last question. What are my holy grail comics? And do I own any? Holy grail, see how best to interpret that. What are the books that I love the most? Sandman. Dark Knight Returns, Martial Law, Preacher, Why the Last Man, The Authority, Transmetropolitan, Global Frequency. I was a big Warren Ellis fan. Still am. And the X-Men. You know, like I came to comics via Secret Wars. And from there, I went to Spider-Man and I went to the X-Men. Claremont's run on the X-Men. And that's what comics were for me for a while. And I was Marvel for a good long while. And then when Dark Knight Returns came out and when the kind of indie comics boom started, like I sort of broadened my horizons. But yeah, those are my holy grails. I don't have a ton of wall books. I think maybe I have a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1 third printing somewhere, which wasn't a wall book when I bought it. I just bought it because fucking Turtles, man. I feel like I had a Walking Dead #1 and threw it out. No, I wouldn't have thrown it out, but it got lost. I moved a couple of times. I think it got lost in the shuffle. But yeah, sadly. All right, boys and girls, I think we are done with this episode of Black Man Beyond. Sans Kevin, who is off making cinema dreams come true for himself and for many others. We will be back in a non-determined time. I'm not sure when he's back in the world. I think he's shooting until the end of March. So hopefully back in April. We'll be back in the cantina to do this proper. But yes, so for this episode of Fat Man Beyond, I have been Marc Bernardin. Kevin Smith has been Kevin Smith. Tune in, same fat time, same fat channel, smartcast.com or youtube.com/Kevin Smith. Thanks, guys. I'll see you soon.